looking back on that, do you think of those as spiritual experiences or just chemical experiences? Because you do obviously talk at one point in the book about kind of being very aware, especially on one sort of in between trips, you had a kind of experience, which for you write, I remember the night I finally saw him, the devil, Papa
Yeah.
Diabolus.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you do think there was a spiritual thing going on there, even if you were tapping into something that was potentially quite dangerous.
Yes, I definitely did. And I still do. And I think it's interesting that I had this almost like a pet name for the devil. And in my mind, there was this cosmic war going on between good and evil, whatever I perceived to be good, that I was enmeshed in. And yeah, that night really shook me up because I was not on drugs that night. And I was lying in my bed and I saw an apparition in the corner of my room. It was just like a dark column of smoke that was kind of swirling around, but it was substantial. And I thought to myself, okay, that's not really there. I'm just going to go back to sleep. My drug-addled brain is just producing this apparition that's not really there, which is interesting. As much as I was enmeshed in this world, and I loved it in a way, like I couldn't really handle the idea that I was having visual hallucinations while I was not on drugs. So I told myself it's not real. And then I had this little terrier mix, and he stood up and he bristled and he started barking straight at it. And we were I was on the second floor of an apartment. So it's not like there was, it was in the middle of the night. It's not like there was someone walking by. There wasn't any noise from the apartments above me or below me. And that really freaked me out. But I absolutely think there is a spiritual reality to it. It's not just chemicals, assailing our brains. Although I think the fact that there is a chemical reality to it does not negate the spiritual reality. But and I do think that makes it really dangerous, because I feel like people always get more than they've bargained for. That these drugs are taking us places that we're not intended to go to, at least not in our fallen state. No, we're not. So yeah, I absolutely think that they were real spiritual experiences in a sense.
I mean, those who do vouch for these experiences, obviously you're not one of them now, Ashley, but those who do kind of pursue enlightenment, transcendence through this route, what do they think is happening? Because obviously there is a chemical component to it. So
Right.
something's happening in the brain. What do they claim is happening? Is it some kind of breaking down of some barrier that is normally there? What is the claim of what's happening when it comes to the practitioners of this?
I've heard different theories. Yeah, that it does like disable, that it somehow taps into our, it's serotonergic. Psychedelics are serotonergic. So somehow they break down our normal meaning making filter, I guess, that they do in some sense sweep away our previous ways of like understanding and filtering concepts and reality. And of course, I think about that and think like, are those really meant to be broken down in such a violent, sudden manner? And I would really question that. And I think for those who believe that there's a genuine spiritual component, I think that they would probably believe that they're pulling back the veil on reality, that this idea of like oneness and everything being one and everything being connected is the ultimate reality. And to be fair, some people do experience, and I experience at times, a feeling of oceanic love. But even those experiences of oceanic love, I look back and I feel like there was always an edge of, how can I describe it? An edge of danger to them, or like an edge of a lack of safety, of a lack of like complete reassurance and rest. And even in those feelings of oceanic love, and I look on I compare that, of course, to my experiences as a Christian of experiencing the presence of Jesus Christ. And there's the word I've used before, which it sounds a little strange, but it feels to me the appropriate word. There's a cleanness and a purity to the experiences of the presence of Jesus Christ that there never was to even the most, bombastic, oceanic experience of universal love that I would have experienced in psychedelics.